Well, I think it's important to understand that from the very beginning, President Putin declined to use the term war. He talked about the special military operation, and he was very sensitive to avoiding anything that would disturb domestic peace. In other words, he wanted to maintain the standard of living, ensure that everybody essentially got everything they wanted to eat or purchase or buy. They worked very hard to circumvent sanctions, which has turned out to be an art, and they've done that very successfully. Their economy is humming. Is it doing as well as he would like? Probably not. But by our standards, compared to things here where we're adjusting our GDP for the last quarter down to almost zero, I think they're doing very, very well. Now, there have been some developments. First of all, much to his disappointment, though I think he should never have expected anything different. He thought that he would be able to work with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump would work with him and bring this war in Ukraine to an end. Well, that hasn't happened. And the only way that the war in Ukraine is going to end is if the Russians end it. Now, I think that's coming. It's coming a little late, frankly, and that's the point. I spoke very recently within the last 24 hours to some Russians, and specifically one, with connections in St. Petersburg. And his point to me was very straightforward. He said, Americans don't understand that in Russia, people are discontented, not with Putin personally or with his management of the economy or his overall competence. They don't understand why the war in Ukraine has taken this long. They think that if you're going to go to war, you should go to war. In other words, everything should be mobilized. Everything in the country should be committed to winning the war and ending it on terms that meet Russian needs. But the key point is winning it and ending it. This thing has gone on in the view of many, many Russians too long. That's not just the man in the street. That's people in his inner circle. That's people in the government. So now he's come out and said, well, now we're getting ready to go to war. Well, what's changed? Ukraine is not recovering. In fact, the latest figures I've received from multiple sources, including those in Eastern Europe, of people that have been watching this carefully, is that 265,000 Ukrainians have been killed just within the last 6 months. In other words, January through June. We're talking about 265,000 Ukrainian troops. This would bring the total of losses up to probably 1.7, 1.8 million.
Wow.
We find that incomprehensible, but I'm afraid it's not. And anybody who knows what real war is like knows from historical experience that's not outrageous. What's interesting is that the losses on the Russian